Morning, everyone. I am Dr. Cheryl Thompson. That's what people call me today. But back in 2001, when I graduated from the University of Windsor, go Windsor, with a degree in criminology, I was just Cheryl, another undergraduate who didn't know what they were going to do or what they were going to become in life. See, something weird happened in my third year of university, unexpected. A professor pulled me aside and said, hey you, well, he didn't say it like that, but he said, hey, you should do your PhD in my third year of university. And I did not even know what PhD was. I didn't know what those letters stood for. And I never even thought of grad school. See, I was the first person in my family to attend and graduate university. And all my friends were the first in their families too. So I couldn't ask them anything, and they couldn't ask me anything. So we were both kind of useless to each other. And so I did what most young people do. I ignored my university professor, and I did exactly what I wanted to do. I got a job, like everyone else. Most people who know me today, they often laugh when I tell them that my first job out of university was as an insurance claims adjuster. Now, what is an insurance claims adjuster? According to a pay scale survey, claims adjuster ranks 14 out of 15 on a list of employees who say that their job makes the world a worse place. Okay? But the truth is, claims adjuster is a very difficult job. And the reason it's difficult is because you have to deal with customers, you have to manage your company's bottom line, and you have to close your files. That's key. And so I will never say anything bad about claims adjusting. I always tell people I was a claims adjuster because it taught me two skills that I still use to this day: time management and conflict resolution. When I do my research and I go into archives, I have to be efficient. I have to use my time efficiently. I learned that in insurance. When I'm dealing with students, sometimes that's a conflict-based interaction. I have to deal with that. And I didn't learn that in grad school. I learned that in insurance. So I got that job, and I worked that job. About 3 years in, I hated that job. I hated the office. I hated everything about it. And I remember I would say to people, I hate insurance. And they were like, why would you hate insurance? No one hates insurance. I'm like, yes, I do. And I don't feel like it's the job for me. And they would always say, oh, it could be worse. I'm like, yeah, it could be worse, but it could be better too. So I said to myself, I need to leave this job. So I did. So I left that job. And then I became a conference producer. And what is that? That's another topic. And then I left that job after 2 years. And then I became a financial reporter. And then after 3 years, I had to leave that job. To the outside looking in, I was a hot mess. I couldn't keep a job. But the truth is, I wasn't trying to keep a job. I was trying to grow. And so the reason I kept leaving all of those jobs is because I reached my learning potential. And what that means is, at each job, I'd simply learned all that there was to learn. And I'm a learner, and I knew that. So I felt like I had no choice but to leave. And then I heard my university professor over here like, you should do your PhD. And it was 8 years later, but I finally listened to him. And before I went off to do my PhD, I thought to myself, you know what? All of these jobs are the same job. At every job, I went to work and I asked questions all day. That's all I did at every single job. And then I started to think, you know what? All these questions are in aid of a company. What better place to spend your days asking questions in aid of yourself than in graduate school? So off I went to McGill University to do my PhD in communication studies. Now, my first semester at McGill, Barbara Ehrenreich, who's a writer, a journalist, and author, she came to McGill to talk about her book, Bright-Sided: How Positive Thinking is Undermining America. I thought, what a title. Oh, I have to go to that talk. So I went to the talk, and then after the talk, I thought, what is wrong with Barbara Ehrenreich? My goodness, she's so negative. Everything I've ever heard, and everyone has always told me, positive thinking leads to success. So in her book, she gives definitions of positive thinking. So the first one is this: positivity is our ideology. It's the way we explain the world, and we think we ought to function within it. So we say, oh, there's a silver lining to everything. Oh, don't worry, keep your head up. Oh, it gets better, right? We actually say this, and we believe this. The second thing that she says is that positive thinking is a practice or a discipline of trying to think in a positive way. And what that means is, it's actually how we structure everything. So we say, if I'm a positive thinker, I'm gonna be more optimistic. And if I'm more optimistic, I'm gonna be happier. And if I'm happier, I'm gonna be successful. Conversely, we say that negative thinking will hold us back. That's the problem, you're just too negative. But if you're more positive, you're gonna be healthy, you're gonna be prosperous, you're gonna be successful. Now see, the problem with this narrative is that some of the most successful people I know are the most negative people I know. They have friends, right? They have a family, they go on those nice little vacations, they have parties, they win big awards. They're still successful. I even had a student a few months ago come to my office and she said, you know, I just don't get it. I try so hard. I keep a positive attitude and I still fail. I still come up short. And what I said to her was, you know, I think it's because you're thinking positive thinking is somehow gonna lead you to success, and sometimes it's just not enough. When I started grad school, there were many moments where I felt like I didn't belong. And I can tell you, there were many moments where the people in grad school made me feel like I didn't belong. Positive thinking was not going to help me in those moments. I knew I had to dig deep. I had to find something else. So without even realizing it, I started practicing 2 life strategies that are commonly associated with positive thinking. So the first one is this: cognitive behavioral therapy. And what this does, it really encourages you to take an analysis of your emotions, their circumstantial triggers, and the consequences they have for thinking and behaving. I had to take stock of all of that. My emotions, my responses to people, what they were saying to me, how they were making me feel. All of that had to play into how I was gonna succeed and make it. And I remember, I thought to myself one day, whatever and whoever was filling me, I had to seek them out. I would purposefully seek them out. And whatever and whoever was not, oh, I had to drop them, and it was not personal, but they had to go, because I was there to achieve my goal. The next thing I started to do was practice something called mindfulness. And we always hear, what is mindfulness? Well, Ellen Langer is one of the foremost scholars of mindfulness, and she says that mindfulness is really a cognitive disposition that has 4 components. So the first one is engagement, being engaged with your environment. The second one is being novelty seeking, seeking out new experiences. The third is being novelty producing, trying to make sense of those new experiences. And the fourth is flexibility, being able to take on new perspectives. Mindfulness, in other words, is awareness, but it's not just awareness of oneself. It's awareness of one's environment, awareness of when something's not working, awareness of when something needs to change, and awareness that mindfulness is not positive thinking. When I moved to Montreal, I knew I was going to face many challenges, and I can tell you out the gate, it was one challenge after another. I even had a person in a position of power send me an email my first semester, and in not so many words, they said to me, "You're nothing, and your research is nothing." At that moment, I did not say to myself, "Oh, look on the bright side, you're at McGill. It's the Harvard of Canada. You'll get through this." No, I had to really assess myself. I said, first of all, 1, I'm not here to reply to idiotic emails like that. That's not why I was there. Secondly, I was not there to impress anyone. I really wasn't. And third, I wasn't even there to make friends, but I made friends because I'm friendly. So that happened, and that was a bonus, but that's not why I was there. I was there to get a PhD, and nothing and no one was going to get in my way. I had to be clear that that was my purpose. And then what I also had to do was say, okay, let me start questioning myself here. Had I made the right decision? Did I actually belong there? Maybe I didn't. Should I go back into insurance? Yes. Being a claims adjuster at that moment seemed better than being a grad student. But then I said, no. You're done with insurance. You can't go back there. That was then. I said, no, I'm here now. And if I want to live and succeed in this, then I need to get focused on my goal. And my goal was to get a PhD. So then I started to answer my own questions, and I became my own peer group, basically, because I knew I didn't have a peer group. I was in the program with those people. They were not my peers. They hadn't gone through what I'd gone through to get there, and I knew that, and I walked with that. So the answer to the question of did I belong there was unequivocally yes. You better believe I belong there. There was no question. Because, see, I didn't go to grad school because I had nothing else to do. I went to grad school because I had to. So I had a purpose, and I walked with purpose. Every class, every interaction was for a reason. And so it's on this exact day, fate, destiny, this exact day, February 4th, 2016, I won the highest postdoctoral research award you can win in the country. Yes, I did that. And I did that after 7 years of winning nothing. While my peers went on and did all the winning, I did not. I was losing, in their eyes anyway. And so if you just focus on that, and you skip over my journey and my story, you miss the point. So my journey has taught me two things. The first thing is that your thinking does not define your level of success. It just doesn't. It's the questions that you ask of yourself along the way. You have to get clear. Why are you doing this? What do you hope to achieve? What's your goal? What are your short-term and long-term goals? How many times you talk to students, you want to go to grad school? Why? I don't know. No, you need to know, or else you're not going to finish. You have to be clear in your purpose. So I got clear. And when I got clear, I also realized I love questions. Questions are actually my thing. Today, I use questions in the classroom as a pedagogical tool, not to torture my students, although it is fun to see them squirm. I do it because that's what my story has taught me. And so I'm actually sharing my story with them. I've turned my classroom into a quiz show in order to share with them what I've learned in my journey. The second thing that I've learned is that the story does not have to be your story. It just doesn't. What is the story of Black women in academia in Canada? That is a nightmare story. That's actually a horror show, right? Racism, depression, lack of a peer group, like the list goes on and on. It is a very negative story. And it doesn't mean that it's not true. It's just that when I walk in front of my students, I put that story in my back pocket and I walk in with my story, because it shouldn't dictate how I interact with people, and it doesn't. And so last summer, I'm going to leave with this. I went on a road trip. I never go on vacations. I took one. And I was driving through Alberta. I love Alberta, by the way. And I was with my friend Gina. And we got to a point where we got lost. And I said, oh my gosh, Gina, stop the car. Look at this. I need to take a picture of this. I took this, by the way. This is not a Google stock image. This is me. And I said to myself, this is it. This is exactly how we think our lives are going to go if we just be positive. A straight, direct path to success, beautiful sky, tree-lined streets. The problem with that is that if you don't get clear and start asking yourself tough questions, when you get to the end of this nice direct path and there's a sharp bend in the road, you're not going to see it coming, and you're not going to be ready for it. The only way you can prepare for those unexpected sharp bends in the road is by asking questions. Who are you? What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? What's your aim? What are your goals? You have to get clear. Because I firmly believe that we have the power to recreate and create our own story. But it's only when we ask questions of ourselves. I went from claims adjuster to Dr. Thompson. I mean, that sounds like a comedy sketch, but it's real, and it happened, and it wasn't by accident. So when you start asking questions of yourself, those questions are going to give you new answers, and those answers are going to lead you to answering the ultimate question of all. Who do you want to become? Thank you.